I think I have to unmute everybody. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask?
I have a question, Stuart.
Yes.
Yesterday, my beloved cat of 16 years, Lucy, died, and I'm grieving heavily. And I wondered if you could talk about grief, please.
You know, there's a lot of ways of looking at this. If you really love someone, be it, a human being, a cat, a dog, whatever, that person, that animal, their soul lives in your heart. Their soul is inside you, and the love that you can really have for them, their soul will be with you, for the rest of your life. Grieving is good because we get rid of a lot of tension, emotions, and things we have to get rid of. But ultimately, I hate to say this, passing on is not a negative thing. It's not a negative thing. It's either becoming enlightened or it's moving on to the next incarnation and taking with you whatever you garnered in this lifetime and bringing it into the next lifetime as your soul evolves, and develops within you to get closer to, spiritual enlightenment. So, as I say, grieving is okay. Over grieving, it just drains you. But just, okay, I feel the loss, but my God, I spent, I don't know how many years with that cat.
17.
17 years with that cat. You shared your life 17 years with that cat. Every one of us and every living thing has to leave here at some point. And there's no point in grieving because, grieving extensively, because what you're doing is really you're just feeling sorry for your own loss. Instead of rejoicing in the fact that the soul of this animal or the soul of this human being can now move on, and be reincarnation on another level of consciousness. I think this is a difficult thing to grasp, mostly because the society doesn't allow us to grasp things this way. But I think it's a very important thing to recognize that death is not a negative thing. Death is only loss if you make it into loss. But if you go into your heart and you find the soul of that cat in your heart, there's no loss. Look, I was there the moment Rudy died. And there probably is nobody that was closer to me, human, animal, than Rudy. And I never felt loss because he was living inside me. His teachings, his energy, his soul force was profoundly in my heart. And he always told me, I've said this many times, when I, move on, he said, don't grieve for me. Don't build shrines to me. He said, just learn whatever you have to learn from me in this lifetime and use it to get to God. And it's no different with your cat. Whatever you had to learn from that being, use it to grow in your life. and to understand that life and death are part of the organic evolution of not only the human soul, but the soul of the universe. The human soul, animal souls, plants, trees, it's part of an organic evolution of consciousness. And there's nothing negative about that and nothing to grieve about that. I wrote a little poem, I'm kind of spending time trying to open the world to the poetry I've written, and I go to this group and, it's not opening it to the world, but at least it gives me a chance to read it and get some fairly intelligent people to respond to it. But one of them that I read was these kind of haiku things I wrote long, long time ago. And I can't, it's something, this morning I went to the birth, this morning, the birth of a child, and this evening, a funeral. So many steps I have to walk in this day. I mean, it's tighter than that, better than that. But the whole idea was it's birth and death and then life in between and all the different experiences that we have. So many steps I've walked today. And I think that this is an amazing thing, because if everything in our life is sacred, everything is our teacher, and everything we have to bow to and open to and love and respect and embrace and allow it to teach us what we need to learn to grow in this life. And be it a cat, be it a dog, be it, human beings, our parents, our children, or whoever it is. Those are the steps we take between birth and death. And every step gets us a little bit more conscious about living in the world. So, I wouldn't grieve too much. I mean, I lived in a house where there were cats for about 5-6 years, and 2 of the cats died while I was living there. And I remember one of them that I remember went to the person who was like the owner of taking care of him and looked at her and just told her he was going to die. And he died. Just looked her in the eye and I'm going to die now. And there was no drama, just boom, finished. So animals in nature maybe understand this better than people, mostly because they don't think about it. They just live, it's just their experience, So I wouldn't, I would grieve, but, also feel a lot of joy for the 17 years you spent with this creature, The fact that now is the time for it to move on, and incarnate maybe 17 years with you. Next incarnation will be a human incarnation, So I would combine the two, a little bit of grieving and a lot of joy.
Okay.
I mean, how many people on the planet Earth have you gotten to spend 17 years with? Not a lot, huh? A handful. You spent 17 years with this cat. Be grateful that you shared your life with this being. So don't grieve and try to drag it back to the earth. It's time for it to move on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have a question I'd like to ask? I mean, all of these things are part of the evolution of one's inner life. You get to do these things, not understand them, because who the hell can ever understand this stuff? But you get to live that way. It becomes an organic process of the way a human being lives their life. And every day we go through death and rebirth. I mean, for God's sake, nature shows that. There's day, there's night, there's the birth, the sun comes up, the sun goes to the pinnacle, then the sun. I mean, every day is death and rebirth. Every day is change. And one of the problems with people is we so try to hold on to the past, and we want things to be the way they, and we create it's like, eating a plate of starch, It really just keeps people from being free enough to truly move on in their life, truly. And then one day we all have to move on. And there's nothing we can do about that. We can stay healthy and live longer. We can do, stuff like that. But even Methuselah died, 900 years he died. Everything eventually has to be part of the evolution of the soul. In the period of life, we're given the opportunity to truly become one with God. So those steps between the birth and the funeral is the opportunity every human being has to truly become one with God, to have a spiritual life. Do not take it for granted. Each step is sacred. Each manifestation around us is sacred. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? I remember when Rudy came back from India and he had just broken with Muktanand. He finally said, I've had enough and I can't continue doing this anymore with him. And he came to me, the day he was back, I was sitting in the back of the loft there, and he came and he sat down and he, Stuart, I want you to understand that ultimately we're all in this alone. You learn from me, I learn, we all learn. But ultimately the dialogue is between each and every one of us and God. And the steps between birth and death are building a system that enables us to have that dialogue with God. And then there is no death. We just embrace what's infinite in the universe. We become one with higher energy. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Stuart, I have a question about sync.
Yes, Bob.
On those days when I'm feeling really ungrounded, whether it's moving through levels or whatever it is, what's the best thing I can do?
Best thing, well, do what Rudy used to do, Bob. I walk into his gallery, he'd be sitting there stringing beads. I look at him, say, Rudy, what? He said, I'm incapable of doing anything else today. So I'll string beads. And I would sit with him for 2 hours doing meditation, opening, and he'd be sitting there and just stringing beads. So Stuart, the energy is so strong in me. I feel like I'm coming apart. I can't do anything else. So don't force it. As they say, go with the flow, I hate to get trite, but that's what they say. But, don't force it. Today for me was a really difficult day. I was so tired all day. I was incapable of, so I just went with it. I said, okay, Stuart, you got to teach 2 classes today, and just go with it and don't fight it. Don't fight it. And then you eventually emerge out of it. String beads. go out and plant tomatoes, I mean, don't have big projects it's no time to think about, some huge project that you want to do, And that's what I suggest, Bob, because then you're not wasting energy combating something that it's really impossible to combat. Could be astrological, could be certain planets that are moving and that affect you directly. You don't know what it is, but if you fight it, you just waste your energy. But if you just say, okay, I'm going to relax. I mean, there's a very funny television program that I kind of like, really, that I will turn it on and watch it and laugh, and do everything under the sun to keep from fighting that inertia. That thing in me that, is not ready to conquer the world today. So I would suggest that, Bob. I've been through it many times. Look, the most powerful being I ever sat around was Rudy, and I used to see him go through it. I'm incapable of doing anything today except string beads. And there's nothing wrong with that. Hey, plant tomatoes, cucumbers, do something, weed, I mean, do something. I mean, you're up in the country, I'm sure you have a garden. But do something that doesn't require, using a lot of energy and vitality to do it.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Bob. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? I mean, not everyone is going to be at the pinnacle of their creative efforts every day of their life. And if you're not there, don't beat yourself up. Relax, do your inner work, relax. And the next day, the energy will come and it'll be something different will grow around you. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay, if there are no more questions, then there'll be meditation on Sunday. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. God bless you for being here, turning up on my computer screen, sitting and doing this inner work, which is very magical and extraordinary. And bless you for being part of this, and thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all in the next class.
Thank you. See you Sunday.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.